Greetings fellow Mist Wanderers, my name is Steve Morgan and this is DM of the Mists, covering all things CoS Strahd and Ravenloft. I've had this video as an idea for a while now. I was going to do it in a few videos time, but then I saw a Reddit post where someone was asking for help with Castle Ravenloft, so I thought I'd bump it up the queue a bit. Before I go into it, I'd like to discuss what this video is and what it isn't. This isn't a detailed room by room run through or anything like that. There's other people who've done that in the past, and in fact I'm going to talk about them later. This is more sort of just sharing handy resources, hopefully handy resources all in one place that I've seen over the years on places like Reddit or on DM's Guild or wherever else. Hopefully if you're preparing Castle Ravenloft at the moment and you're watching this video, there's a few things you're not aware of that might help you. Castle Ravenloft is a beast, it is a big dungeon, it has a lot of areas, a lot of different things that can happen, a lot of monsters. It's got a very confusing layout, which is kind of by design, and it's supposed to be confusing for the players and the PCs, but that unfortunately by extension means it's confusing for DMs. What I'm going to say first of all is probably what people aren't going to want to hear, but the best thing you can do is just revision. Yes, I use the word revision, probably the least sexy, least fun word ever, talking like it's some sort of school assignment, but there's no shortcut, there's no silver bullet, I'm afraid. The best thing you can do is just read it, maybe read it again, and you get to a point where, like, I haven't even looked at it in months and I still know what most of the layout is like and what's in some of the rooms and things like that. You get to a point where when you do have a look in the book, when you're actually running it in front of your players, you're like, oh, I remember this because I've read it 5 times. So unfortunately, that's my first bit of advice. You're probably just gonna have to read it a lot and try and remember it a lot and remember it the best you can. I don't ever got to the point where I remembered everything in every crypt. There are 40 of them, if memory serves, in the catacombs. Hopefully it'll get to the point where you know most stuff and you can just quickly glance at stuff and be like, I remember what's in here. Next, let's talk about maps. The isometric ones in the book are great. They're, I believe, from the original module, or maybe updated from the original module, but they're not ideal for combat. If you're running everything Theatre of the Mind, including maps and exploration and monsters, then you might be okay, but you probably need a top-down version. I use Roll20, and in there are the isometric maps plus top-down versions included. And I think there's if you didn't want to get the whole of CoS Strahd on Roll20, I believe there's just like a maps or castle maps version only. If that's right, I'll include a link in the description. And their top-down maps are great. They even have things like all the random encounters in, I think, the bottom right corner, so that, if you need to grab Rahadin or Strahd appears or some whatever else appears, you've got them ready. Other maps, if say you're not doing Roll20 or you're doing like an in-person game but want to buy some high-quality ones to print out, I've heard very good things about the Venatus maps, if that's how that's pronounced, on DM's Guild. I'll include a link to that in the description as well. And for those of you who know the map maker DM Andy, he's not only done Castle Ravenloft, he's done a restored version of Castle Ravenloft, say if it got tidied up afterwards or you need it for some sort of flashback. And I believe he's also done interactive Tome of Strahd variants as well, so he's done a lot. Plus there are other map makers out there. And if you are doing Roll20, consider dynamic lighting. When I first started doing Roll20, I was intimidated by dynamic lighting, so I didn't do it, and I just did Fog of War, where everything's black, and then when they walk into a room, you reveal it, then they walk into another room and reveal that. And I switched on dynamic lighting as they got into the castle, which was quite exciting. For them, it's like a confusing place, and now they can't even see half of what's there, or remember which way they just came from. I thought that was a great way to do it, so I'd recommend dynamic lighting. Some people have built Castle Ravenloft on Minecraft. I think you can download some of the maps if you're on a PC, and even experience them yourself. I play Minecraft on, well, I got it for my kids, but we got it on PlayStation 4. So I don't think I can download them, but there are YouTube videos of people doing run-throughs, and I remember watching one a few years ago when I was preparing Castle Ravenloft, when I ran CoS Strahd, and just seeing people go up and down stairs and knowing what led to what was a massive help. So I'll include a link to, if I can find the one that I originally watched, plus some others, or you could just search in YouTube, Castle Ravenloft Minecraft, and probably find a ton of them. But I wanted to mention that because they're a really good way to sort of, especially when they go from floor to floor and explore things that way, and go up one staircase and come out and you can realize, oh, that staircase comes to that room. Speaking of staircases, a while back someone published on Reddit a stairways diagram where it's color-coded lines pointed to every stairway. Now this came out around the time when I was running CoS Strahd and had memorized through revision the whole map. And so I triple checked it and can confirm that other than one staircase, it's 100% correct. I think the one staircase that's missing is from the floor with the witches up to the platform that's alongside, the outside of the Heart of Sorrow. So it's a really good way to figure out where staircases go and maybe have that to the side, and if your players move from one map to another, you can make sure they go up the right staircase, because it's very easy to accidentally, get the staircases mixed up, and then they might be going in a room they shouldn't do. And when I ran it in Roll20, I actually color-coded the stairs as well. I think in the GM layer, I did little different color circles. So one stairway had a red circle, one had a yellow. On the next map up, that had red and yellow corresponding. So I knew that if they went down a stairway with a red circle, look for the red circle on the lower map. I'll dig into my old Roll20 game and include some screenshots here if I find them. And also while researching this video, in addition to the stairways diagram, somebody pointed me in the direction of a map flowchart by Wyatt Troll. I think Wyatt has done quite a few CoS Strahd resources in DM's Guild. I'll include a link to that in the description. It's kind of like a flowchart of what rooms connect to where, similar to the stairways diagram, I think. Also, while researching this video, I came across some black and white top-down maps on Imgur or however it's pronounced. I'll include a link in the description again. And these are handy for if you're doing the wall phasing, Strahd's wall phasing, where he can phase through walls, one of his lair actions. He can also go through the floor and through the ceiling. And when I ran it, I was worried about, for some of the floors, it's obvious what's kind of above and below. But for some floors, it's not as obvious, or it could be easy to get to the exact layout wrong. So what's handy here is you can kind of look and see, all right, okay, so if he goes down that square, he'll appear here on the lower map. I also found once upon a time a vertical Heart of Sorrow stairs map. This is brilliant, and I wish I'd used this, because what happened in my game is the final battle was in the study, and Strahd then went to the Heart of Sorrow tower to kind of get away and move around, face through walls and all that. And one of the players saw the Heart of Sorrow at the top of the stairs, and at that point they hadn't seen it, and they thought, in order to kill Strahd, I've got to destroy this thing. So one of them then ran up the stairs and separated from the group. And that was a bit like, oh my gosh, because they've split up. And also the maps on Roll20, when it comes to just the stairs, were a little bit confusing. And I think I missed one or two, and they ended up reaching the Heart of Sorrow quicker than they should have done. So this map's handy for something like that happens, and you want to make sure that they are going up the stairs properly, moving 30 feet at a time, or 60 feet if they're dashing, or whatever their speed is, and try and make sure they're, from whichever floor they're on to the Heart of Sorrow, they're reaching it in the correct amount of time. Something you could have maybe to the side, just in case that happens. One thing you could consider as well is rolling the random encounters in advance. So I believe the random encounters trigger if they spend 10 minutes somewhere, or pretty much any time they enter an empty room that doesn't already have something in it. So what I did a while back is I worked it all out. I worked out all the empty rooms, and I put it on Reddit, and I'll share a link to that in the description. And so if you want, you can go through and kind of pre-roll the random encounters. And I know that's kind of a bit untraditional, you're supposed to do it as you go, but with everything else that's going on with the cast, it's one less thing to worry about. And you can have, say, if you're doing Roll20, you can have the tokens ready in that empty room, just put them in on the GM layer, and then, whether they walk in the room and, there's witches or whatever. I talked about party splitting up with the Heart of Sorrow staircase. Don't forget about the elevator trap as well. That could separate some players, and that happened in my game. One or two of them triggered it. It went up. They all passed the save, sadly. But other PCs then were still stuck by where the lift starts, and I then had to manage two groups and keep flicking back and forth and say, and while that happens, let's join our other friends over here. So just be prepared that could happen. They always say never split the party, but it's one of those situations where the party could be split outside of your control and outside of their control, unless you were to just not bother with the elevator trap. But that's a shame. You want the elevator trap. There are some good videos that run through Castle Ravenloft. There's a YouTuber called No Fun Allowed. I didn't actually watch his videos when preparing Castle Ravenloft, but I did watch them when preparing the Amber Temple. And he basically just runs through them, room by room, kind of helps to explain them. It's a good thing to do. If you're doing household chores, you can kind of watch and listen in the background, in addition to your usual prep, just to kind of help you think of things. And he sometimes gives tips as well of things he might change or be aware of this. stuff like that. I think Lunch Break Heroes do something similar in their videos, as well as potentially suggesting tweaks and additions you could make. And then of course, the obligatory mentions to things like CoS Strahd Reloaded, Mandy Mod, Pyram King. Yes, they have videos about Castle Ravenloft as well, and some of them might sort of run through it in detail, but no fun allowed, I know for sure, and I think Lunch Break Heroes kind of cover it in detail and stick mostly to rules as written as well, which might be handy for when you're first learning about Castle Ravenloft, because there's so much going on. It's a bit like when I talk about Vallaki, there's so much going on, do you really want to change too much or add more? But then when you're comfortable and confident with it, and you do want to add and change, you can with the others. One idea you might want to consider as well to kind of almost like help out to an extent is you could give the players the maps, and there's an in-game way you can do this. So if they go to the Amber Temple and see the room with the model of Castle Ravenloft, I've then seen some DMs say that they let the players have the maps at that point, because they can, if they spend time studying it, making notes about it, and then they have access to the maps then. And I even saw somebody, and I'll share the Reddit link in the description, somebody did sort of all parchment paper architectural blueprints that go alongside the castle model, so that they can say, take it away and it's a handout for your players. It's a resource you can give to your players. The good thing about this is it means it's not all on you to figure things out and remember stuff. You know, your players will have the maps then as well and be studying it, and they may catch you, say if you make a mistake, they may say, oh no, actually I think this goes here. So it almost sort of gives you almost a helping hand, or it's almost like a second opinion on where things go. But I'd only recommend doing that if they actually find the maps in game. It'd be a bit weird to give them the maps and so they know where everything is if they don't actually have a physical map in the game. I talk a lot about this in the context of it being the end game. The players have reached, say, level 9, they've got the 3 items and their ally, and they are storming the castle to take down the Strahd. But what if you're doing the dinner as the sort of diplomatic meeting that a lot of DMs do, rather than the sort of rules as written trap, and they're trapped in the castle? Or what if there's an unexpected earlier visit, such as straight after the village of Barovia, they're like, oh, let's go and have a peek, it's sort of on the way. Or get an Argynvost's skull if you're leaving it rules as written inside one of the rooms in the castle. We may not need to prep everything. You could have Strahd say that certain places are off limits. I think a lot of people say that the catacombs and the lower levels are off limits, so you may not need to prepare them as much or at all. You could have it that Strahd gives them a tour. This is what I did in my game. So after the dinner, he led them to the chapel, up one flight of stairs to the audience hall, and back into the entrance. So I only really had to repair 2 floors. Now it could be the case that they sneak off. I actually in my game had Rahadin kind of, Strahd led the way, the group in the middle, Rahadin kind of at the back, keep an eye on them. And I think they were a little freaked out by Rahadin, especially after they sensed his sort of weird screaming ability. Yeah, and it's up to you really. You might feel that's too restrictive. You might want your players to have free reign, but obviously the more free reign you give them, the more chance they may go and explore, and the more you may need to prepare. And let's be fair as well, I read in one post while preparing this video that someone said your players aren't going to mind if you just need to spend 10-20 seconds reminding yourself what's in each room as they visit it. It's kind of expected, it's a big place. Don't be so hard on yourself if you don't remember 100% of it as you're running it. I suppose so long as you're not taking like minutes just to sort of figure out one room, you'll probably be fine and be forgiven. I wanted to give a shout out for some other resources for when you're running the castle. For art, I'm sure a number of people watching this will be familiar with James's RPG art. He's covered most places, if not all places, in Barovia, including the majority of the important rooms in Castle Ravenloft. I'll show a few examples next to me. You know, so show those as they're going around the castle, if and when you remember. I think I put a note in Roll20 in the GM layer that just said art next to the dining hall, next to the audience hall, next to the chapel, and so on, so that when they went in an area and I was looking around, see what's there, I'd see art, and that'd be the, oh yeah, let me show them the art for this room. For music, I'm a big fan of tabletop audio, and I did a video dedicated, actually 2 videos, dedicated to my music choices for CoS Strahd. And then for the castle, I think I played Quarter the Count for when they visited the castle for the dinner, but then for exploring the castle for the end game, I used the File Temple, which is that kind of balance of really creepy, really eerie, you know, put you on edge, tense music that I think is perfect for the castle. And I've been playing some of those as I've been recording this video, but I would recommend checking those out and maybe putting them in your game. And when it comes to the final battle, I've done a video where I talk about Strahd's tactics in the final battle, covering all the different locations or the potential places he could be as per the Taroka reading. So, you know, he could be found in the chapel, he could be found in the study, that was where he was in my game. He could be found in 3 different places in the catacombs, different tombs, and so on, and even a few that aren't rules as written locations, mostly referring to his rules as written stat block, and if he's got his regular lair actions and legendary actions and his default spell list, feel free to check that out for when you are preparing for the final battle. And folks, it could be worse. After running Castle Ravenloft, I ran Castle Tristan Noira. That's the sort of castle and end dungeon of Forlorn. That's another domain of Dread, which in the old law was actually bordered with Barovia. And that has 171 rooms, and some of the rooms have 2 or 3 different versions, because the castle changes times you go through it. There's sort of like time shifts, temporal shifts, and you go through and, you know, they go to one room and it's pristine, and they go to another room, you know, run down, present day, it's derelict, and then they go back into the previous room, they were pristine, and now that's derelict and run down. It was fun to run, but oh my gosh, it made Castle Ravenloft look easy by comparison. I actually did a video where I covered Forlorn, 2 videos where I covered Forlorn, and 1 dedicated just to the castle. So if you're interested to see how that went down, feel free to check that out. And that's it for this one. I might have missed some stuff. If I have, please let me know in the comments. Could be helpful to other DMs who are preparing the castle. Upcoming videos, what have I got? So I did our Strahd review recently. That was 2 videos as well, a spoiler light and a spoiler filled versions. The next video was supposed to be, I've sort of swapped the order of this one and that one, is things you can use in Air Strahd and put into CoS Strahd. That'll probably be the next CoS Strahd video. And then on the Ravenloft front, I'm probably going to cover 2 domains, because I finished off the Rider's Bridge recently, which is one of the minor domains listed in Van Richten's guide. And I also want to cover Lemordia as well, which I'm not running or planning to run, but I got a few ideas and I want to give more information and, you know, monster ideas, map ideas, adventure ideas outside of what's already included in Van Richten's guide. So keep an eye out for those soon. Thank you, Mr. Wanderers.